Well, hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Quad Boss Lee. And in today's video, we're going to replace the power steering pump on my 2006 Ford Freestyle. Now this process is not going to be complicated, but we do have to follow certain steps at certain times. So I got everything I need. I got my new pump, I got new seals, and it's optional to get a new reservoir. I did not. I'm going to see how bad mine really is. If I need to replace it, I'll go ahead and do it. And then I got pulley, pullers, and everything I should ever need to replace the whole system. But first things first, we got to take things apart before we can dig into it. So let's get into it. Okay, so if anyone is curious, your power steering pump sits right below your power steering fluid reservoir. So if I turn this light on, let's see if you guys can see it. But this pulley right down here, right there, is where our power steering pump is. So the top of our power steering pump is right there. So in order for us to get to anything, we're going to have to take your windshield washer fluid reservoir out. So I already did that because I got to replace it in a future video. And the next one you have to take off is our coolant reservoir. The coolant reservoir is held in by two 8mm bolts, so one here, and there's one tucked in right about where that green cap is, right there. And then we could pull this out and set it to the side. You don't have to disconnect any lines, but we could pull it out, set it to the side, and that'll give us plenty of room to attack our pulleys. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this bad boy moved out, and we'll move on to the next step. Alright, so I got the coolant reservoir moved over. The next step is we're gonna have to flush the system. The reason why we are going to flush this system is because I want to get all the old crappy fluid out of the system, so that way when we put our new pump in, any metal shavings or anything doesn't get into the new pump and possibly destroy it. So we're going to flush the system. How we're going to flush the system is this system is a pretty simple system. So you have a gravity fed reservoir that feeds into the top of the power steering, and then you have a high pressure side, which is this hard metal tubing that curls around and goes to the back. That goes to your steering rack. And then this hose right here is the return line. So it comes from the radiator and comes up and returns into the reservoir. So I'm going to take this return line off, and I'm going to put it in an empty bucket, and I'm going to take the lid off the reservoir, and I'm going to start the car and let the system run through all the fluid and get the old fluid out. So the fluid right now is black. By the time I see clear fluid, that means the whole system has been flushed. So I'm going to go ahead and set up everything I need to, and we're going to flush the system. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so we are ready to go ahead and flush the car. I'm going to have Dad start up the car here. Fluid's going to come out of this top return line, and then I'm going to top off the car as he runs it. So go ahead and start it. Go ahead, shut it off. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so this is why we flush the system. This is what was in the system. This is clean fluid. Pretty much clean. There was a little bit of left, but as you can tell, the top is yellow, and that's what you want. This is what came out of the system. Pretty dark stuff, but it should be pretty much somewhat clear with a little yellowish tint like that. So now that we got that done, now we are able to take our system apart. So first things first, what we're going to do is we're going to take the reservoir off. Now some people say that you could take the reservoir off. Some people say you could take it with the pump when you take it out. I'm going to try to take the reservoir out before, if I can. So the reservoir has two 10mm bolts holding it in the back. So those two right there, we're going to buzz those off. And that should be all that's holding this power steering reservoir on. And then we're going to make our hose disconnect, which is that clamp right down there. And we should be able to get this reservoir out. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so I got my reservoir loosened. Now I'm going to loosen the high pressure line. So there is two nuts. There's a bottom one that is a 21 millimeter, and then the top one is an 18. And we're just gonna go ahead and try to loosen this bad boy up so we can go ahead and get our pump off.
I think a falling angel just walked by. 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 There goes a sight from my soul.
Our high pressure line is off. So now, reservoir disconnected. So pretty much everything power steering wise is disconnected from the car. The only thing we have to do now is release our belt tensioner, which is on our serpentine belt. And our serpentine belt tensioner is located right up underneath our power steering pump. So our tensioner is located right down there. So I believe it is a 3/4 inch wrench, so I'm just going to take that off. Can lower the belt off the power steering pump, and then once we drop it down, we're free to move the pulley, and we can get our 3 bolts that take the power steering pump out. So let's disconnect our belt tensioner and we'll get started. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so we got our belt off, and now I could freely move this pulley. And as you can see, let me see if I can get one pointed out here. You see a bolt right there. There's going to be one below, and there's going to be one on the side. So we're going to take those off. Once we get those off, this power steering pump is good to come out. So once we get it out, we'll have to fish it through this hole here, which is why we took our coolant reservoir out. And when we do that, we can also fish our reservoir through the top of this hole down here and out through here. So we're going to take the 3 bolts out and the power steering pump, and everything should be able to come out. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so I've got the power steering pump and reservoir out, and that is where it sits. So you threw these 3 studs, and the pump slides into there, and you put nuts on there and tighten it down. That case back there had some fluid in it. I just cleaned it up, and I cleaned off some of the front of the engine here, just that way this fluid doesn't dry on it. But the power steering pump is toast for sure. This whole pump is covered in liquid. The original source of the leak was this little hole right here, but I believe there is also a leak back here somewhere, because there is a bunch of fluid back here and there shouldn't. But I took my connections off. Right here is where your high pressure line is, so I took that guy out, and then up top here you have this fitting right here, which comes off of your reservoir. So I got the pulley off as well. I have a pulley puller that I purchased, and we were able to get this off. So everything is off and cleaned up. The only thing I'm waiting on is I need to get a new reservoir, because there is a filter in here, and I don't know if you guys can see in there, but there is quite a bit of gunk in there. So I unfortunately can't clean it out, so I'm going to get a new one. Other than that, everything's ready to go. So we can start putting some of the pieces back on the pump here until I get the reservoir, but we'll start putting on the new pieces. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, so it has been about a week since I've last filmed anything on this car, because I had to wait for a few parts to get in. So I got my pump, and I had to get a new high pressure fitting as well as a reservoir, because the old reservoir was dirty and nasty, and believe it or not, there was a filter in the reservoir that was completely disgusted. So I had to wait for those to come in, but today's the day we're finally putting it back in. So on our new pump, I got our pulley back on our new pump. Sometimes these pulleys come with pumps. I just decided to get the pump and not the pulley because the pulley was so good. So here's our new pump as well as our pulley. I got the pulley pressed on, and then I got our reservoir hose connected here. There's no torque setting for this. You just kind of hand tighten them. And then this is our high pressure fitting. I had to get a new one of these. This is the old one, and it's just, I didn't trust it. It was kind of loose and whatnot, so I just got a brand new one. And this one does require a torque setting. Now when you put this in here, you're gonna see on this old one here, there is some Teflon tape residue left over. So we're gonna put some new Teflon tape on there. I already did, and I already got it synced down. I just need to torque it down. Now the torque setting for this sucker is going to be 26 foot-pounds. So, and I don't know if you guys have any of these, but I was lucky enough to get a kit a while back. They're open-ended wrenches. It is an 18 millimeter, so I'm going to put it on here, and I'm going to set my torque setting to 26 foot-pounds and torque this thing down. And other than that, this thing is ready to go back in the car. So let me torque this down, and we'll get this bad boy back in the car. Ladies and freaking gentlemen, we are done. Finally. I know it's been maybe 30 seconds for you guys, but it's been about 2 weeks for me. The power steering is all put back together. It works flawlessly. There's no leaks, no whines. So the pump was my issue. I believe the pump was going out, and that's why it was leaking. But we got everything in. We got a new pump, new gaskets, new high pressure line, as well as a new reservoir. So pretty much everything is new besides the power steering rack on a couple lines. But other than that, everything else is brand new. So let's take a look. Alrighty, so I am at the car. I have not put any of the reservoir back, but as you can tell, our power steering reservoir is put together. I have it a little lower than it needs to be just because the car is jacked up. So by the time the car gets jacked back down, it should be up at the optimum level. But our new pump is tucked right behind this pulley. This is the original pulley. I just cleaned it up. But our pump is sitting basically right there. See if I can get a light down there to show y'all. So the pump is where this high pressure line is, and the pump sits right back down there. So like I said, everything is put back together. Everything was flawless. I bled the system. Everything is good to go. So yeah. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys like this video. There's not a lot of videos out there for these Ford Freestyles, so any problem I make, I try to make a video on it, so that way it helps all of you guys who have them still. This car's been great to me, just other than a couple of things, but yeah, guys, the power steering pump is replaced, along with a couple fittings in the reservoir, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give this video a like, and if you have not already, subscribe to Cloud Boss Elite, and we'll catch y'all in the next one.